Please don't hurt me again. I can't take it anymore. Maya Williams never intended to spill the coffee. Her hand shook from pure exhaustion. Just a brief lapse. The mug tipped slightly, and the scalding liquid splattered across the table, a few drops landing on the sleeve of Mr. Carver's flannel shirt. For a heartbeat, the diner went completely still. Then his hand flew across her face. The crack echoed like a gunshot. Her head jerked sideways, her lips tearing against her teeth. Blood flooded her mouth, warm metallic, filling her with shame. Carver stood up slowly, enjoying the fear in her eyes, glaring down at her like she was something he'd stepped on. "That's what happens," he snarled. "Stupid girl. Can't even pour coffee." Maya stumbled backward, clutching her cheek, her other hand raised instinctively to protect herself. Her voice shook, thin and pleading. "Please, sir. I didn't mean it. I'm sorry. Please don't hit me again." Carver leaned in, his breath thick with whiskey. "People like you need to know your place." Her knees nearly buckled. She braced herself against the counter, trying to stop her legs from shaking. Behind the grill, Miller dropped his spatula with a sharp clang. His face flushed, not with concern, but irritation. "What the hell is wrong with you, Maya?" he shouted, rattling the salt shakers. "You just scared off a paying customer. Can't you do anything right?" Her voice quivered. I didn't mean to. It slipped." "Slipped?" Miller roared. "You slip every damn day. If you weren't so slow and scatterbrained, maybe you'd have a future. Instead, you're here ruining mine." "Miller, please," she whispered, gripping her apron like armor. "I need this job. I need the hours." "My little girl," he sneered, waving her away. "I don't care about your sad story. You're barely holding on here, and you just sealed your fate." His words hit harder than the slap. Her chest tightened, panic rising as her breasts grew shallow. "I'll pay for the coffee," she begged. "I'll clean everything. Please don't fire me. Not for this." Her pleas poured out in broken fragments, dignity dissolving onto the grimy tile floor. "I'm trying. I swear. My daughter, she's only 4. I can't lose this job. Please. Please." Someone near the window cleared their throat. An elderly couple stared down at their plates. No one moved. No one spoke, except one man. From the back corner booth, a man stood up slowly. He looked ordinary worn jeans, plain gray shirt, the kind of person you'd never notice twice. But the way he stepped forward calm, steady made the room turn toward him. Charles Remington had been silent all evening. He'd come in quietly, ordered black coffee and fried catfish, left a generous tip, and kept himself like he had for weeks. No one knew who he really was. No one knew he'd once negotiated billion-dollar deals or helped revive struggling towns across the state. But tonight, Charles Remington had reached his limit. He moved with quiet certainty, cutting through the tension without haste or drama, as though his choice had been made long before he stood. "That's enough," he said, his voice low but unyielding. Miller spun toward him. "Mind your business. This is my diner." "I know," Charles replied evenly. "And right now, it's a place where a woman is bleeding and begging while everyone looks away." Miller scoffed. "You don't know her. She's nothing but trouble, always complaining, always causing problems." Charles turned to Maya, her eyes wide, breath uneven. "You don't deserve this," he said quietly. "Not any of it. And you never did." Maya shook her head, her throat tight, tears threatening to spill free. "Please don't make this worse." "No." Charles looked at Maya. Her hands were shaking, her lips split open, humiliation trembling through her entire body. Then he turned back to Miller. "She's a human being," he said calmly. "That should be reason enough." Carver puffed out his chest, emboldened by Miller's silence. "Who do you think you are? Some kind of hero? She's just a waitress. She should shut up and do her job." Charles's expression darkened not with rage, but with a quiet disappointment that silenced the room more effectively than shouting ever could. "I believe," he said slowly, "that a man isn't judged by who he can hurt, but by who he chooses to protect." Carver stepped closer, fists tightening. "You want to hit too?" Charles didn't flinch. I've taken hits before. I lived through them. Then, steady and unshaken, he added, "But I won't stand here and watch this." He pulled $100 bill from his wallet and placed it beside the overturned coffee mug. "For the meal," he said softly. His gaze shifted to Miller. The bill sat there, bright and accusing, the price of silence. Miller's face twisted not with shame, but with anger at being challenged on his own ground. "You can walk out that door and never come back," Miller snapped. "I will leave," Charles replied evenly, "but this isn't finished." He looked at Maya one last time, his voice lowering. "You don't deserve this. And one day, you won't have to beg anyone to see your value." Then he turned and walked out. The bell above the door rang, small but defiant. Maya watched through tears as he crossed the parking lot, climbed into an old pickup truck, and sat there with his head bowed, hands gripping the wheel like he was holding himself together against a memory too heavy to face standing. Inside, the diner slowly returned to life. Forks lifted, conversations resumed, breathing normalized. But nothing felt the same, not to Maya. She pressed her hand to her swollen lip, trembling. She didn't know his name. She didn't know why he cared. But she knew this. Someone had seen her not as a problem, not as an inconvenience, but as someone worth defending. In a life full of silence, that mattered. Outside, Charles whispered to himself, his voice rough with old grief. "Ruth, I found her. Maya." He opened the glove compartment and touched the embroidered handkerchief again. R.W. Ruth Williams, Maya's mother, the woman who once ran into fire to save him. Tonight, she had lit another fire. And this time, he wouldn't let it die. Not again. The next morning, the coffee stain was still there. A dull brown mark clung stubbornly to the tile behind booth 3. Maya noticed at the moment she clocked in. Her lip was swollen, the cut barely healed, hidden under concealer that couldn't fully disguise the bruising beneath. She hadn't wanted to come back. Walking to the diner felt like stepping into a room that whispered her humiliation from every corner. But rent didn't wait, and her daughter's shoes had holes and soles. She tied her apron quietly, avoiding eye contact. A few regulars offered awkward greetings, unsure whether to pretend nothing had happened or acknowledge it and risk discomfort. So they did what most people do. They stayed silent. Miller didn't say a word. He just handed her a rag and pointed toward booth 3. She knelt to scrub the stain, ignoring the ache in her cheek, the sting as cleaning solution touched healing skin. The tile felt cold beneath her knees. The cloth darkened quickly as brown bled into white. She scrubbed harder. "Still here, huh?" A voice said, thick with contempt. Maya looked up. Carver sat at his usual table, arms crossed, eyes inspecting her like a cracked plate. She dropped her gaze and kept scrubbing. "Guess Miller wasn't that serious," he continued. "Talks big, but business is business. You should be thankful. Some places wouldn't keep mouthy help." Maya said nothing. She couldn't afford another incident. Not now. Not while everything still hurt. She stood, wiped her hands on her apron, and moved toward the coffee pot, letting habit take over. Her fingers closed around the handle just as the bell above the door rang. She turned and froze. It was him, the man from the night before, the one who stood up, the one who looked at her like she mattered. He wore the same worn jeans and plain gray button-down. But something was different. Not him. How others reacted to him. Whispers rippled through the diner, like wind through wheat. Maya stood still, coffee pot forgotten in her hand. Charles Remington gave a small nod to hostess and walked to the same corner booth. He didn't check the menu. He didn't scan the room. He simply sat and waited. Maya hesitated, then approached. Her heart raced with every step. This time, her hands trembled not from fear, but from questions she'd never allowed herself to ask. "Black coffee," she said softly. "Yes," Charles replied, meeting her eyes. "And if the catfish is fresh, I'll have that again." She nodded and poured. As she worked, he studied her face, not with pity, but recognition. He noticed the swelling, the slight wince when she turned, but he didn't comment. When she returned with his plate, he placed a business card beside the napkin. "Please don't be alarmed," he said gently. I'm not here to cause trouble, but you should know who I am. Maya glanced down. Charles Remington, President and CEO, Remington Ventures. Her grip tightened on the tray. The name stirred something familiar. News reports, stories about rebuilding projects, community investments. I don't understand, she whispered. I didn't come here as a CEO, he said. I came to eat, to observe. That's how I evaluate properties. I come quietly. I watch. I listen. You're here to buy the diner? She asked. He nodded. I still am, but not for the reasons you think. I'm not interested in flipping it or franchising it. I look for places where change matters. Her heart pounded. Why would this place matter to someone like you? He took a slow breath, reaching into a memory long buried. Because of your mother. The words stopped her cold. 24 years ago, he continued, there was a fire at a research facility near Savannah. I was young, careless. I stayed behind for a file. The fire spread faster than anyone expected. Smoke filled the halls. I was trapped. His voice faltered. Then someone pulled me out, dragged me through the flames. I didn't know her name until later. Ruth Williams. She went back in for others and never came out. Maya's breath hitched. Her mother, the story she'd heard in broken pieces her entire life. She'd always known Ruth died saving others, but the details were blurred, softened by time and silence. Now the truth stood in front of her, a man alive because her mother hadn't turned back. She was my mother, Maya said, her voice barely audible. I know, Charles answered gently. I saw her picture in your wallet when you paid last week. I wasn't certain then. After last night, I was... Maya slid into the booth across from him, her hands shaking. I don't know what to say. You don't need to, he replied. But I do. I didn't return to play a hero. I came back because I owe her my life. And maybe, just maybe, I can make that debt matter. The silence between them grew heavy, filled with memory and grief that had never been given words. At last, Maya spoke again. Miller won't keep me here. Not after what happened. He hates me now. Charles glanced toward the counter, where Miller pretended not to stare. Then perhaps he shouldn't be running this place at all. Her eyes widened. You'd really buy it? I would rebuild it, he said. But I won't do that without someone who understands this town, someone who knows what people here actually need. Maya stared at him, the idea too large, too unreal. The thought that she could help build something, own part of it, felt impossible. I'm not like you, she whispered. Charles smiled softly. Neither was your mother, and she still ran into a fire. He stood, leaving his car on the table, along with a $50 bill. I'll be around for a few more days. If you want to talk, call me. Then he left, as quietly as he had come. Maya remained seated, the card trembling in her hand, her heart racing. Behind her, the stain on the tile was already beginning to fade. Charles Remington drove slowly down the narrow Georgia road, his fingers tapping against a worn leather steering wheel as the sun sank behind rows of pine trees. The old truck rattled with every bump, its suspension groaning beneath the weight of quiet. He could have owned something new, something polished, but he preferred the rust-colored Ford. It reminded him of where he came from. Not boardrooms, not hotels with white tablecloths. Back roads, small towns, places where a promise still meant something, and poverty left scars deeper than broken pavement. His thoughts drifted, as they always did, back to the fire. Late autumn, cool night, dry air, perfect conditions for disaster. A forgotten heater, an overloaded circuit, something small that turned catastrophic. He remembered the smoke before the flames, the way it crept through the building, swallowing light. He dropped to the floor, just like the drills taught, crawling blind through hallways he thought he knew. But panic twist direction. Heat thickened the air. His lungs burned. Then hands, strong, gloved hands, gripped his shoulders and dragged him forward. He never saw her face, only heard her voice. Steady, calm, I've got you, keep breathing. And then she was gone. Later, in the hospital, someone handed him a report with a photo clipped to it. Ruth Williams. Age 41. Nurse. Mother. Volunteer. Deceased. He remembered the shame, the fact that he never thanked her, that he lived while she didn't. He'd tried to find her family afterward, but the trail had gone cold. He told himself that living better and helping others should have been enough. Yet the feeling never fully settled. Until now. Charles pulled into the gravel parking lot of the town's only motel and stopped beneath a flickering sign that read, Midway Inn, Weekly Specials. It was plain, reasonably clean, the sort of place truck drivers and traveling salesmen passed through without leaving much behind. He grabbed his overnight bag and stepped inside, the doorbell chiming with worn-out cheer. At the desk, a teenage clerk glanced up from his phone. Back again, sir? Charles nodded. Room 5 still open? Yes, sir. As he signed the guest log, Charles asked, That diner in town, Miller's, how long's it been around? Oh, forever, the kid said. My grandma says she ate there on prom night back in the 70s. It's kind of a landmark, even if the food's not great anymore. He leaned closer. Owner's a jerk, though. Runs off good workers. Charles gave a neutral hum, took the key, and headed to his room. Later that night, he sat on the edge of the motel bed, a foam cup of coffee steaming beside him, laptop balanced on his knees. The screen was crowded with documents, property records, zoning layouts, tax filings tied to Miller's Diner. He hadn't been bluffing. The acquisition process was already nearly complete. One signature was all it needed. But this was no longer just a business deal. He opened a folder labeled Community Concepts. Inside were sketches and plans. Revamped diners turned into neighborhood hubs, job training centers, shared kitchens, performance spaces, after-school programs. All impressive. All missing something. So, the kind that couldn't be manufactured with exposed brick and stylish lighting. The kind Maya carried naturally. He leaned back, thoughtful. This wasn't only Ruth's legacy anymore. It was Maya's opportunity, and he wouldn't offer it as charity. He would offer it as reflection, a chance for her to see the strength she already possessed, the same way her mother once showed him. Across town, Maya tucked her daughter into bed, brushing curls from her forehead as the little girl whispered, Love you, Mama. Love you more, Maya murmured, her voice rough from exhaustion. She lingered in the hallway, watching her daughter sleep. In her hand, she still held Charles's business card, edges bent from being handled too many times. She'd read it over and over. It still felt unreal. In the kitchenette, she poured herself water, wincing as her jaw ached. By morning, the bruises would darken, visible proof of cruelty and of silence. But the card meant something else. Possibility. Change. Scary, distant change. She pulled a shoebox from the fridge. Inside lay the remnants of her mother's life. A nurse's badge, a watch that no longer worked, a faded photo of Ruth holding baby Maya, her smile bright and fearless. At the bottom was a newspaper clipping. Local nurse dies saving others in Savannah fire. No names. No survivors. Just a small article beside an ad. I didn't even know who you saved, Maya whispered. Tears rose without warning. What do I do now, Mama? She closed the box and pressed it to her chest. Outside, the town was quiet, but something had shifted, like the air before a storm. The next morning, Maya dressed carefully, choosing her cleanest blouse. Her daughter drank juice at the table, legs swinging. Are you going to the diner today? She asked. Maya hesitated. Maybe not. The girl smiled. Is that good? Maya returned the smile softly. I think it might be. After dropping her daughter at daycare, Maya stood outside for a full minute before pulling out the card again. Her fingers trembled slightly as she dialed. Remington Ventures, a crisp voice answered. Mr. Remington, please, Maya said. One moment. Click. Silence. Then his voice calm and steady. Maya, I want to talk, she said. I'll be at the diner in an hour. Same booth. All right. And just like that, her life took its first real step toward change. Morning light washed over Miller's Diner, glinting off chrome and turning dust into gold. The bell rang as Maya entered, not in uniform, but in jeans and a blue blouse. For the first time in months, she wasn't there to serve or scrub or endure. She was there by choice. Miller noticed her immediately, suspicion tightening his face. "You're not scheduled today." "I know," Maya said evenly. She spotted Charles in the corner booth, coffee waiting. Miller followed her gaze and scoffed. "That guy again? Whatever ideas he's feeding you, let me tell you, this is real life. People like us don't get rescued by rich men." "He drives a beat-up Ford," Maya murmured. "What?" "Nothing." Miller smirked, satisfied. Maya walked away, ignoring the ache in her cheek, and stopped by the booth. Charles looked up, not with pity, but presence. "You came," he said. She sat across from him, surprised to find her hand steady. "You said you'd explain." "I did," he replied. "If you asked." She inhaled. "What do you want from me?" He glanced toward Miller, then lowered his voice. "I want to buy this diner," he said, "and I want you to help me turn it into something that actually matters. Something real. Something this town actually needs." Maya blinked. "I'm just a waitress." Charles shook his head. "You're a mother, a survivor, someone who keeps showing up, even when life gives no reason. Your mother was the same." Her throat tightened. "I can't be her." "I'm not asking you to be," he said softly. "I'm asking you to see what she saw in herself. What I see in you." Maya looked down, fingers tracing the edge of the table. Inside, a war raged, a lifetime of being told she wasn't enough clashing with the echo of her mother's courage. Somewhere between the two, something shifted, something real. "Why here?" she asked. "You could buy anywhere," he replied quietly. "But change doesn't start in big places. It starts in forgotten corners, in small rooms where someone dares to believe in better." Her eyes stung. She blinked hard. "I don't know anything about running a business." "You know how people should be treated," he said. "That's the foundation of every good place." She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to. "But everyone in town knows I need this job," she whispered. "They've already judged me." Charles shook his head. "People don't judge you for who you are. They judge you for what they fear losing. Fear is loud. Courage is quiet. But it lasts longer." Maya let his words settle, then leaned forward. "Miller will never let you buy this place." Charles's lips twitched, a secret smile. "I already did. Signed the papers yesterday." Her breath caught. "He what?" "He thought he was selling to a group from Atlanta." Charles said, lifting his mug. "Turns out it was me." Her pulse thundered. Miller had no idea. Yet he would soon. "So what happens now?" she whispered. "Now," Charles said, "we build. But first we do this properly." He slid a folded envelope across the table. "Severance pay. 6 weeks. Something he wouldn't have offered." Maya stared. "I didn't ask for this." "I know," he said softly. "That's why it matters." Her fingers brushed the envelope, unsure. "What if I say no?" "Then you walk away with the check and a reference for me," he said, locking eyes with her. "But I don't think you'll say no. You're scared because you know what a yes means." "What?" "That you're capable of more than anyone ever let you believe." Her breath trembled. Before she could answer, Miller stormed over, clattering plates onto the next table. "You two done playing pretend? Some of us have work to do." Charles rose slowly. Calm, confident. "Yes, we are." Maya stood beside him, legs unsteady but heart certain. Miller scoffed. "Good. Now get out. Both of you." Charles nodded as if expecting it. "We will. But first..." He pulled a document from his jacket and placed it on the counter. Miller grabbed it, scanning the front. Confusion, disbelief, then rage. "What is this?" "Proof," Charles said evenly, "that you no longer own this diner. You sold it yesterday, without asking who the buyer was." Miller's jaw dropped. "You're lying." "No," Charles interrupted. "I keep my word. Something you should try sometime." He nodded toward Maya. "And soon, so will she." Time stilled around Maya. Memory and hope collided. She wasn't ready, but she was willing. And sometimes that's enough for a future to begin. Charles held the door open. You coming? Maya inhaled, shaking, terrified, and then walked forward, towards something she chose, not away. The sun began its slow descent as she stepped out, envelope still in hand. Miller's shouts faded behind her. Something had shifted. Charles waited by his truck, leaning casually against the driver's door. Quiet satisfaction glimmered in his eyes, like a man who had finally moved a stone on a mountain he had carried for years. Maya approached slowly, unsure what to say. Legs trembling, lips sore beneath makeup, but her back no longer bent. He opened the passenger door. Ride with me? She hesitated, then nodded. Inside, the truck was worn but clean. A faded child's drawing, tucked under the dashboard, caught her eye. 2 stick figures holding hands beneath a sun and tree. Charles noticed. My daughter drew that when she was 6. She's 23 now. You have a daughter? Maya asked softly. I do. I want her to grow up in a world where women like you don't have to beg for dignity. Maya said nothing, but her throat tightened. The engine hummed, tires crunching on gravel. He didn't speak, letting her breathe. Georgia pines passed by in quiet rhythm. At the town's edge, he slowed onto a side road, dirt kicking up behind them. Where are we going? She asked, curious. Somewhere I go when I need to think. 5 minutes later, he parked beside a small, weathered building surrounded by an overgrown garden. Maya followed to the back porch, where old rocking chairs faced a field of wildflowers. This used to be my grandmother's house, he said, settling into one of the chairs. I fixed it up a few years ago. No one lives here now, but it reminds me where I come from. Maya sat beside him, unsure. The silence between them wasn't awkward. It was settling like dust after storm. Charles reached into his coat and pulled out a small, folded square of faded white fabric with RW embroidered in one corner. Maya gasped. That, I know. It's your mother's, he said gently. She tucked it into my hand the night. She saved me. I didn't even realize until I woke in the hospital. I kept it all these years. He placed it on her lap. Maya stared, fingers tracing the threads. For a moment, she saw her mother's face, sweat on her brow, kindness in her eyes, and that tireless strength that once made Maya believe anything was possible. She couldn't resist it.